Hi folks, good evening. It's John here. We're going to tie a little early season olive fly. This one here is a little bit more complex. There's a few more materials in it for those that are beginning, but stick with it and you'll get there. Let's get stuck in. So this is a size 16 Tiemco dry fly hook, but really any dry fly hook will do. Just make sure it's in the vise. I'm using a brown olive 12-0 wax thread for this fly, and we're starting the silk right behind the eye this time. And take your thread down and touch and turns to where the bend starts. The first material going in here is just a few strands of tan Cloëon. Just tie them in about the midway point and then bend them over. This just saves having to try and bind down little cut ends that can sometimes stick up. So we just want to go around to make sure these are pointing down a little bit. I'm happy with that. And then at an angle trim your Cloëon, and this is going to act like a little shock. Straight on top of that I'm going to select some Cloëon, just a few fibres, ones that are pretty well barred. The nymph of this fly has got very well marked legs, so we want to copy that, and then straight on top with a pinch and loop. Oh, there's one misbehaving there. Out. So when I have those in, just make sure that they're on the top of the shank. Okay, if that's easy enough to see. And then I just trim these off. Again, with dry flies, the body doesn't really matter. I'm using my standard sort of wool body. This is a Sawyer's type colour. So I've just trimmed off the end and a couple of open turns down the body, and then if I turn this round so you can see, I'm pulling it down to the very last tip is in, and then up the body. Okay. And then I have a Pantone type marker here, number 124, and I'm going to colour the wool. Just try not to colour the tail. So I'm going to work from below here, but you'll see that I'm twisting this wool back into a rope, because I did thin it out a little bit at the beginning. And then up the body in almost touch and turns. It gives you a slight segmented effect. And cross that and tie it off. So before I introduce any hackle or wing, looking through my little selection here. So I've picked a dark brown. Oh, that one's terrible. Really need to get some better partridge. So I've picked a well marked partridge feather. You'll find whenever you get these, I have them loose. They're always too long, so it's, for these smaller flies, it's very hard to hackle them. So I'm just taking a bunch here about 5mm wide and leveling the tips and taking that off. So I know that the hackle of this fly is going to be approximately the gape of the hook, so I'm going to tie in this partridge. You can tie it in a little bit long and then pull it forward. And I just want a few little legs. This particular stage isn't necessary, but I think it just looks a little bit different. Then I'm coming to the top here, and I'm going to select two olive CDC, not feathers, just puffs really, or medium sized ones. So I've got two CDC feathers here. They don't have to be the best ones, but and I'm going to tie these in directly on top, but you'll notice that the wing is currently very long, and I'm leaving that way on purpose. So a couple of turns here, and lift them up best you can. You're always going to have a few stragglers of CDC, but so we've got a wing tied in there, and then I'm going to trim off this section here, but I'm leaving the butts in place. And now I'm selecting a hackle, and if you're unsure of the size, you can hold them up to the hook and check them. I don't like plucking these big long feathers out and then realizing you've got the wrong size. So this is a good tip, that if you're, so that one there's not too bad, a wee bit too big. So this one here's fine. Especially with saddles, it's good to check them before you take them off the cape, because then they just lie about and get lost. So onto the side, and I've enough of the stalk pointing in front of the wing, so when I cross over I'm able to tie the stalk down with even more turns. Okay, and I've stopped the thread pretty much at the junction of where the partridge is tied in. So I've actually got the hackle facing forward, so the concave side is facing towards the eye. 3 turns at the back, lift the wing up, 3 turns at the front. Now I want to draw back those hackles, because tying this way they will want to try and overlap each other. So tying off the hackle in the upward position, 2 turns is sufficient, And before I take the hackle off, I'm bringing all these fibres back and then making a small head at the front. And straight in with a whip finish. And pluck off your thread, break off your hackle. There's probably enough there for another fly. And then trim your wings. Again, you can leave these long and trim them in the water. Now, you'll notice whenever you trim CDC that obviously it's going wider at the top, but the natural fly, obviously the wings are meeting, so I don't really like them. I like them more wing shaped. So the reason why I tied this CDC so long is I actually want the stalk in here. This stalk is, in my opinion, what keeps the fly floating far, far better. If you look at one of these feathers, if you're tying this stuff, yes, it floats really well, but when it gets submerged, the only way you can dry it is to use either powder or preferably a wee bit of tissue. But if you have the stalk in, there's a natural section of air going all the way down. So this fly actually, just with casting, will almost dry itself. So I'm just plucking out any fibres that are, any CDC that are below. So I've got a few partridge here, which gives it the jingler style effect. Got a wee Cloëon chuck, and again I would put this fly into the box with the hackle untrimmed, but quite often you'll end up trimming them underneath. Hope you enjoyed that fly. Tight lines for next season, and thanks again for all the new subscribers.